intermediate. If it is less than 5 or 4, it is the non-tuberculin patient. Now coming to the one of the most important chapter, that is the Corynebacteria. If you have gone through the several question paper of the MUHS, you have seen lot of time the Corynebacteria has been asked as a LAQ. So what do you expect from the LAQ? It is again same as of morphology, cultural characteristics, and the laboratory diagnosis of diphtheria. As I have told you about the important aspect about the how do you remember about the morphology and cultural characters. Here you can remember one of the MCQ from the Corynebacteria is the Chinese letter appearance. This is the organism which gives you the Chinese letter appearance in the Gram-Stein morphology. So this is one of the MCQ from this chapter. Now coming to the LX gel precipitation, this is again the SAQ which is mostly asked in the examination. You need to diagram what is the LX gel precipitation. What is the usefulness of this LX gel precipitation? And you need to draw a neat label diagram again. If you have here seen, this is generally done to know the the toxicity of the isolated from the patient sample. Generally it is toxigenic or non-toxigenic. When you get the toxigenic, you will get the line of precipitate. You can see here, if it is a line of precipitate, you will get arc. It means that it is the positive. That means it is the toxigenic strains. If you do not get any line like arc, it is referred as a non-toxigenic strain. So you remember this. The LAQ is also very important, and SAQ, amongst the SAQ from this chapter is the LX gel precipitation reaction. And one of the MCQ is based upon the morphological characteristics, that is Chinese letter appearance. You may get a question, which is amongst the following organism is the Chinese letter appearance. So you can just refer that it is the Corynebacterium diphtheri. Now coming to the another most important chapters, Salmonella and Vibrio. I have clubbed these two organisms together, and you can expect the long answer question on the Salmonella as well as the Vibrio cholera. I have just mentioned here about the Salmonella, but you can expect the disease laboratory diagnosis. If it is Salmonella, it is typhoid, and if it is Vibrio, it is the cholera. So what do you remember again in the morphology? Those 4-5 points. Biochemical reaction, you must know about these organisms. And then again, I have told you, even if you write those 4 points and just mention one thing from each point, that is, for example, the specimen collection, then the microscopy, then third one is the cultivation, and fourth one is the identification and the antibiotic sensitivity. So similarly, you can attempt the typhoid as well as the cholera laboratory diagnosis. I expect still one of the two important SAQs from these two chapters. Salmonella, it is Vidal test, and the classification of Vibrio, which I have given one of the example of SAQ, how you go about it. You just have to mention the flow chart. Vibrio group A and group B divided into basis upon the biochemical similarities and the H antigen. And then if you go further on the subtyping on the serotypes, and then it is divided into various biotypes, that is O1 and non-O1. Then it is a classical and LTAR in the O1, and classical and LTAR again are divided into 3: Ogawa, Inaba, and Hikojima. So even if you draw this flow chart, you will get 3 out of 3 marks. So remember, when you are attempting the classification of Vibrio, you need to draw this flow chart. You will get 100% marks. Okay. This is a very important chapter from bacteriology, Treponema. If you go other two spirochetes, Borrelia and Leptospirosis. Leptospirosis can also be one of the SAQ which can be asked in the examination. But what I've seen in the last couple of years, LAQ is asked on the Treponema, that is morphology, pathogenesis, and laboratory diagnosis of syphilis. And again, in the laboratory diagnosis of syphilis, you can expect one of the separate SAQ as a serological test for syphilis. Here again, you need to enumerate what are the treponemal tests and what are the non-treponemal tests. So this is again as per the analysis of several years of questions. This is again one of the most important chapter from the bacteriology, that is Treponema pallidum, which causes syphilis. So you can prepare as a LAQ, or if you prepare LAQ, automatically you can prepare the SAQ also. We have done with the bacteriology. The cocci have already been covered by Dhale sir, and even the Clostridia he has covered. Now, what I feel is most important chapter, that is mycology. Mycology, I have never seen the LAQ, but yes, there are 6 to 7 SAQs from this chapter. I have taken few examples of two examples from this chapter so that you will be able to prepare nicely. One of the I think in the last year only they have asked for a referred batch discuss the morphological classification of fungi. You can see here in the diagram, you have to write the morphological classification: yeast-like fungi, filamentous, that is dimorphic fungi, and then you can draw the diagrams for each. And of course, you need to mention the examples for each of them. Yeast is Cryptococcus neoformans, yeast-like is Candida albicans, filamentous fungi is Aspergillus, and dimorphic fungi are the histoplasmasis and all those. Okay, so you have to remember the dimorphic fungi also. The other important short answer questions which you can expect from the mycology is that candidiasis, dermatophytes, these two are very important, and of course aspergillosis and rhinosporidiasis. If you prepare the rhinosporidiasis in microbiology, you can use this knowledge even in the pathology. Even in pathology, you can expect the short answer question on the rhinosporidiasis. Even if you've done written part from the pathology, you will still get few marks, but definitely don't do that mistake. In microbiology, what we expect is the morphological characteristic of that organism. How do you cultivate of that organism? What are the different diseases they cause? What are the clinical features they have? And then laboratory diagnostics. In laboratory diagnostics, as I said, specimen collection, microscopy, cultivation, and then identification. This is how you have to attempt these questions. And then, of course, I still feel that one of the important SAQ from this chapter, histoplasmosis. I have taken one of the example as a candidiasis. This is the most important. Again, why I have taken the candidiasis, I'll tell you. You are going to become a future health, dental health professionals, where you can get able to come across the candidiasis, oral candidiasis in your OPDs. So you must know at least basic knowledge about the candidiasis, so that you can able to diagnose clinically at least. And if you want to confirm that, at least you can send a sample and get confirmed on the microbiology lab. Don't need it, but still, if you are a good professional, you can able to diagnose that and tell your patient, yes, this is the candidiasis. So it will be helpful for all of you. So how do you go about writing the short answer question on the candidiasis? You have seen here on the left, I have narrated a few points or few headings under which you need to cover up the candidiasis. So morphology in microbiology is too important. You cannot neglect morphology and directly go to the clinical features or pathology. You have to always remember that you need to write about the morphology. It is the gram-positive oval structure measuring of 5 to 6 micron as a size of the RBCs. Then how do you cultivate the candidiasis? Savarot, dextrozagar. Again, in the Savarot, dextrozagar, there are two ways by which you can cultivate. One is at a room temperature. Second one is at the 37 degrees Celsius. You do not miss out. The idea of incubating at room temperature and the 37 degrees Celsius, that you are giving chance to grow that fungus. And then diseases they cause or the clinical features mainly, or pathogenesis here we expect. And then of course laboratory diagnosis, as I told you, specimen collection, microscopy, cultivation, and identification. Even you can expect one of the SAQ which I haven't mentioned in the previous slide, that is the germ tube test. Germ tube test, what is the aim? It is to differentiate between the Candida albicans and the non-albicans. And how do you perform the germ tube test is very important. And how do you interpret the germ test is very important. If you look at this figure, the cell wall has been extended into a pseudohyphae. This is a true pseudohyphae which is formed by the Candida albicans and not other Candida species. And of course, you need to write about the treatment. There are few antifungals which you need to remember, and they are commonly used for all all fungal infections. So this is how you should go about the short answer question about the candidiasis. Okay, this was about the mycology. Now the most important, and why I say is most important, as we all are suffering from one of the deadliest virus in the world, that is COVID-19 disease, which is caused by SARS-CoV type 2. Okay, so don't forget to do two SAQs from the very first chapter, that is general properties of viruses. What are those two SAQs? One is the cultivation of viruses, and second one is the replication of viruses. Even in the cultivation of viruses, there was one time I have seen they have asked only SAQ on the tissue culture. So there are total three SAQs from this chapter. So never neglect this chapter. Again, not because exam point of view, but you must know. Now we have to know about the viruses. You never know which virus is going to come in the future also, like COVID-19 infective agents, that is SARS-CoV-2. Okay, so you should know these two SAQs plus separately tissue culture as a separate SAQ. So what do you know about, what do you write about the cultivation of viruses? There are three methods. I haven't given the details of these methods. You need to write the details of these methods when you are attempting the short answer question. Various animals which we use generally, the suckling mice is the most commonest animal which we use. Even the guinea pigs, rabbits, humans were used initially. Then they went on to the monkeys and then guinea pigs, and then the latest is the suckling mice. And if you look at in the embryonated egg, there are, I'm sorry for this picture, but you can see from the Anand Narayan or any other book, there are four again different methods by which you can cultivate the various viruses in the embryonated egg. And again in the tissue cultures, there are different types of cultivation, like explant culture, tissue culture, cell culture. Again in cell culture, we have primary cell lines, secondary cell lines, and then continuous cell lines. This is how you need to elaborate. I have just given you the example. You need to elaborate each point in detail when you are attempting the SAQ. Now coming to the replication of virus, there are 6 steps which you need to know. We don't expect, of course, the diagram of replication viruses, but what happens in the first step, what happens in the second step? You need to write the attachment, then penetration, then biosynthesis, assembly, and then release. So what happens in the attachment? Viruses have the spatial receptors on their surfaces. They have a very specificity with the host cell, and they bind together with the specificity. And after that, they penetrate the infectious material, that is nucleic material, in the cytoplasm of the host cells. There, the host cell DNA, either it get integrated with the host DNA and remain quiet for a long time. That is why you have seen in the various viruses, the latency is very quite high. For example, in the HIV, almost 3 months to 6 months. But if you look at this pandemic virus, it is almost 14 days, 3-4 days to 14 days. It depends upon how much time they require to replicate their generation, how much importance they give for having their own progeny, and then coming out of that host cell and infecting again the new cell. So this is how you go about the replication of the viruses. Now this is again, which is very important. Again, I have told you, this is one of the most deadliest virus, which requires very little amount of infecting dose to get in the dentistry. Dentists are the second vulnerable population amongst getting the hepatitis infection, because you are going to get involved in the microsurgeries, and you will never know who is positive for hepatitis and who is positive for HIV. Forget about the HIV for time being, but hepatitis is very highly infectious and it can get transmitted through needle stick injuries. So that is why you need to know about the hepatitis virus, which are the hepatitis virus which cause infective hepatitis, and which are the hepatitis which cause the waterborne hepatitis. Okay, so A and E are generally the waterborne, and then rest of them are the serum hepatitis, infective hepatitis and the serum hepatitis. So what do you expect from this laboratory diagnosis of hepatitis? And the second most important, which couple of times it has been asked in the MHS examination, is the draw neat, well-labeled diagram of hepatitis virus. So you just have to draw a circle, and then you have to mention the different parts of the hepatitis virus. Very important. If you have only drawn the 2 circles and have done something in the middle, like a spiral structure, you won't get complete marks. If an examiner is a little bit, okay, it's fine, 0.5 marks you will get. But if you want to score 3 out of 3, you must draw. Of course, you write the measurement. If you don't write measurement, it's fine, but you need to know which part is the surface antigen, which part of virus is the core antigen, where is the DNA polymerase, where is the envelope antigen. You should know, and you should label it very properly. Okay, this is HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Most important. Again, not only exam point of view, as a healthcare worker, you must know about the human immunodeficiency virus in and out. What do you expect from the HIV and opportunistic infections in AIDS? You expect 3 major short answer questions. First one is very important, that is laboratory diagnosis of HIV. If you go in the Anand Narayan book, textbook, you will find lots of tests which have been prescribed for the laboratory diagnosis of HIV. You need to mention each and every test, and you will get out marks. Okay, and then of course, like hepatitis, they can also ask you the diagram of human immunodeficiency virus. Again, I have told you, you need to know, you need to label it, which is GP120, where is GP41, where is the P24, which is the RNA, which is the RNA dependent DNA polymerase enzyme, where is the reverse transcript, everything you must label it, then only you will get 3 out of 3 marks. So, and the third one, which is very important according to me, is the opportunistic infection rates. You can see here in the table, do not write haphazardly, one from the bacteria, one from the immediately fungal, then again bacteria, then again from the virus. Don't do that. How do you attempt this opportunistic infection rates? Right, either fungal infections or protozoal infections. List out which of the organisms which comes under the protozoal or which comes under the fungal infections. They similarly bacterial infections and then viral infections. Even if you write all these 2 plus 5, 7 plus 3, 10, and then 14 names of the different viruses, fungi, and bacteria and parasites, you will get 3 out of 3 marks. Mind it, I give you the guarantee, if you write these list, you will definitely get the 3 out of 3 marks. So these are the 3 short answer questions which I expect, and you must know. Again, exam point of view is very essential for all of us. I mean, you all. But of course, when you're going as a dental profession, you must know what are the different tests which are need to be performed for the diagnosis of HIV viruses. Okay. This is what is the highlight of my today's topic. Why I'm saying highlight? As we all know that we are suffering from the deadliest disease, that is the COVID-19 disease, and you know that it's highly transmissible, and you never know from where you are going to get infected. So that is why the government of India and everywhere it is implemented as a lockdown period. Why we need to lock down ourselves? Because we are not aware who is positive, even if it is asymptomatic, can transmit the infection. So what is more important when you have such kind of diseases or pandemics? You need to know, must know infection control practices. What do you mean by infection control practices? These are the laid down guidelines by CDC, that is Center for Disease Control, and World Health Organization, where they have given some important practices which you need to implement. Like, for example, immunization. Of course, now of COVID-19, you don't have immunization. So immunization is useful for prevention. Which disease? Hepatitis. Still, HIV also has not got any immunization, but H1N1, yes, it was there. So immunization of healthcare worker is very important. Most important, cost effective, the hand hygiene. Nowadays, you might have seen, wash your hands. How are you going to wash your hands? There is a step which is described by World Health Organization. There are 7 steps. You must know which are those 7 steps. If I want you to demonstrate me, I'll demonstrate. You have to rub your palm to palm very vigorously, so that your crevices, whenever you're working with the patient, you will never know you have those secretions which are stick to your hands. So you need to vigorously rub your palm to palm. And this entire 7-step procedure requires 20 seconds. Mind it, 20 seconds. And soap and water is the best cost effective to get rid of these diseases. Any disease, forget about the COVID-19, any disease. So what you need to do, you have to rub palm to palm, then your back of the palm, go in between the fingers, it is very essential, and then interlacing. We never cover this part of your hands, okay? So it is interlacing. Then if you look at this interlocking, it is called as interlocking. If you try to pull out, it then never comes. So it is interlocking. What is the importance of interlocking? It is important because you never cover the nail beds, and nail beds are the most important part of your hand. Okay. Then this is the interlocking both way. Then the beneath the nails we never cover up. So what you do, you just put it on the palm of other hand. Similarly, left hand on the right hand. So this is how you are covering the beneath the nail. And then finally, rotation of thumb. If you have seen all the hostelites, I always tell my students, they go to the wash basin, they wet their hands, and they're ready for lunch, right? Now you cannot take the chances like this. You need to perform the 7 steps hand hygiene practices, which is being described by World Health Organization, keeping something in their mind. So you're covering the nail beds, you're covering beneath the nail, you're covering the crevices, you're covering the other part, the side part of your fingers, and then you're also covering the thumb, and finally the rotation of the wrist. This is how you have to perform the hand hygiene. And this is the list on your right, on your screen. You can see immunization, hand hygiene, standard precaution. Why it is called a standard precaution? It is called a standard precaution because now you never know in the now I'm not talking about the COVID-19, but HIV is a pandemic also. So if you look at me, you cannot say that I'm HIV positive or hepatitis B positive. How will you come to know just by looking at the patient? No, you cannot. So what do you do then? Any patient who is going to come to your OPD for his or her oral care, you must consider in your mind. Don't tell this to the patient. You must consider in your mind that he or she might be positive for hepatitis or HIV. So I need to wear personal protective equipment. Okay. So in the standard precautions, personal protective equipment is very important. Personal hygiene is very important. Nowadays, if you see in the BDS course, 80% are female students, and they like to grow their nails, have art on their nails, leave their hairs long. Don't do that. You have chosen a career, healthcare. So you need to be control your emotions, control your beautifications to not to get infected from the various infections during patient care. Very important, biomedical waste management. I'm coming to in the next slide about this, so I'm not covering here. Spillage management, immediately you need to take care of the spillage management with the 1% hypochlorite solution. Again, you need to, where you need to dispose of, I'll tell you in the next slide. Needle stick injury, as I told you, hepatitis and HIV are most common infections which get infected. The second most vulnerable population in the healthcare after nursing staff is the dentistry. Don't get afraid. I'm not trying to make you afraid about it, but knowledge is always good. Awareness is always good. So I'm just making you all aware of it. So whenever you get the needle stick injury, you need to go the PEP prophylaxis. What is the PEP prophylaxis? It is the post-exposure prophylaxis. You must inform to the immediate senior that I have got this type of injuries. We need to perform the HIV hepatitis for myself and even for the patient. You need to convince your patient also. He may not agree for that, but you need, if he doesn't agree, you cannot force also. But then try to help him by saying that if you test yourself, even I'm going to get come to know whether it is there. Okay. So it is very important for PEP prophylaxis. Isolation prophylaxis. Now you have heard isolation very commonly in the field of COVID-19. Isolation is very important because you cannot take chances to spread this infection. Already sterilization disinfection protocols have been narrated by Dhale sir, so I'm not going to, but this is one of the important practices you must know and you should know about this. Okay. Now coming to the most important, that is biomedical waste management. You can expect this SAQ in the examination looking at the COVID-19 also. I don't know, but I'm just guessing. My sixth sense says that it might come. So SAQ, biomedical waste management, they may ask you the definition of the biomedical waste management. So you need to know the definition of the biomedical waste management. And then what is the plan? These are the 5 steps you can implement when you are talking about the waste management plan. And then the color coding. This is very important. What do you do with the yellow bag? You discard all the biodegradable waste, such as the cotton, gauze, human body, anatomical body part, or the culture media, or the specimens, everything yellow. What do they do with that? They incinerate. And then in red, generally the plastic, infectious plastic, for example, blood bag, Euro bag, all this will go into the red bag. And then blue, non-infectious plastic waste, such as saline bottle, which is never infectious at all. And then in the black, it is general waste, which is non-infectious. And there should be a puncture-proof container which contains 1% hypochlorite solution for the sharps, metal sharps like needles or these scalpels. Okay, this is how you will be attempting the biomedical waste management. I think I have done with my